Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. These podcasts are brought to you in part by our sponsors, who really truly are what make these podcasts possible every week. O'Fallon Nutrition is a company that I've worked with for over 15 years. They're independently owned and operated, located here in O'Fallon, Missouri, right off of Highway K and Mexico Road. I call this place the Whole Foods of St. Charles County, but even if you are not located on this side of the river, it is still worth the drive. I can remember working all the way down at Powerhouse and still sending people out to O'Fallon Nutrition for their supplements. They are more than a supplement company. You can get grass-fed beef, salad dressing, seasoning for your cooking, hair care products, makeup, deodorant, toothpaste, essential oils, and all the vitamins and minerals that you can think of. If you're looking for clean, whole food nutrition, as well as home care, house care, skincare products, O'Fallon Nutrition is your place. You can take a look at them at o'fallonnutrition.com, or if you'd like to have something shipped, if you're listening to me from outside of St. Louis, you can certainly have items shipped. I know they do free shipping if it's an order over $50, and the phone number is 636-240-5283. Again, it's o'fallonnutrition.com. As well as if preparing your food on a weekly basis is your primary excuse for why you're not able to stay on a good, clean eating program, which is something that I hear very regularly from my clients, I would ask you to please take the time to check out Pure Plates. It's pureplatesstl.com. They are a phenomenal place. We get our food from there during the week. They deliver to our Integrity location. They will deliver to your house. They also are just available for pickup. You can go to their Chesterfield location or their Kirkwood location and just pick up meals for the day, as well as just having them delivered right to your door. So if preparing your food is your main excuse for why you cannot stay on a healthy eating program, then I would suggest just stop by Pure Plates. Just try it. If you're trying to lower your blood pressure, you're trying to lower your cholesterol, you're trying to get your blood sugar down, try to do Pure Plates meals for a week and just see how different you feel. These are organic meals. They are gluten-free. If you need them to be, they can be dairy-free. They are soy-free. You're not taking any processed sugars or meat-curing agents or preservatives. They really, truly believe in nutrient-dense meals that are just whole food nutrition. And I've had my clients, or I've made recommendations for my clients for years at Pure Plates. It's pureplatesstl.com, or you can call them to ask questions at 636-778-3555. Again, remembering that they have a location in Chesterfield as well as in Kirkwood that you can just run by and pick up a meal today. Everyone always asks me where I get my meat from, and given that I really eat meat on a daily basis, typically beef primarily, my meat is very important to me. I have an autoimmune condition and I want grain-free, corn-free meat, and I just haven't found the confidence in stores in knowing that I'm getting 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And I have searched and searched and searched for the right farm, and I have found the farm. It's fedfromthefarm.com, fed, F-E-D, from thefarm.com. These farmers are amazing. It's a family. They're here in Missouri, and they have the desire, just like I do, to see people well and to see people healthy, and they put a lot into what they do. It's such a wonderful family to support. They do offer 100% grass-finished, grass-fed, meaning that's it. A beef, and I get my ribeyes, I get my ground beef, my ground sirloin, I get my chuck roast. I mean, they basically have everything. They even have awesome jerky, but they also have eggs, they have chickens, and they have turkey. I'm planning on getting a turkey for Thanksgiving, and if you'd like lamb, they have that as well. But if you are in need of good quality grass-fed, grass-finished beef, or quality eggs, chicken, turkey, don't just settle for what you're getting at the local store. to go out on the internet and check out Fed from the Farm. That you can arrange a pickup or you can have it delivered to your home. And I can guarantee you're going to taste the difference. For me, my health actually depends on it. So I really thank God to have found such a great farmer. Fedfromthefarm.com. I hope it blesses you.
Welcome to Faith, Fuel, and Fitness, the Integrity Way, with your hosts, John and Debbie Morris from Integrity Training Systems.
Hey everybody, this is John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. So happy to be with you. We always like to talk in our first segment about what it means to be a warrior. And a warrior is a brave or experienced soldier or fighter. And what I love about that is oars. You know, you don't have to be brave and you don't have to be a soldier. You don't got to be in a uniformed officer uniform. If you're experienced it all in life and you've ever fought through something, then you're a warrior. And we've all fought through something when you were sick as a child, something that you had to get a job. I mean, a relationship problem, you fought through it. So what it means to be a warrior is that you're actually capable of taking on life. One thing we deal with a lot in our industry is people that don't think they can overcome. It's interesting how food and a lack of exercise is a perpetual cycle of not only making people think they can't overcome because of the chemistry imbalance, but also leading people to feel like they shouldn't even do those things. And so they get into this loop of like failure where it's like, I'm never going to be good enough. I can't get my new job, or this is too much for me to take on, but the Bible says that your load that you bear will never be greater than what you're capable of handling. So God actually knows where you're at and what's going on in your life, and he knows you're capable of overcoming it. He doesn't promise that it'll be easy, but he does promise that his burden can assist you in life if you'll just put it on him. So sometimes I think that people believe they're being tested. It's like life's testing me or God's testing me. I don't believe that God tests, but I do believe that God watches us be tested. And for those of you that are parents, I think we can all say we've watched our kids do things in their life. And though we don't like seeing them in pain, and though we don't like what they have to deal with, we do like who they become because of it. And that's how I feel life is for us. What makes you stronger, what forges you, and what makes you a warrior and able to take on life is actually what you've taken on before that. And so when you're staring at a mountain, or you're staring at a giant, or you're staring at the hardest thing you've ever taken on, remember that at some point before this issue was another issue that you said, this is the hardest and toughest thing I've ever had to deal with or I've encountered. And you overcame that to get to this point. So if you can overcome that hardest thing, you can overcome this one.
Also, I just think that there's another way of looking at it. There was a message that I heard yesterday at church that, instead of looking at testing, instead of using the word testing, that you think you're being tested on something, what if you were being stretched instead of being tested? So what if God was stretching you to be able to make more room for the possibility of your destiny actually coming to pass? Like, what if that stretching was going to produce the flexibility to make it possible for you to truly start taking on the gifts and all of the different things that are attached to your destiny or attached to your future? And you have to be willing to be obedient enough to be stretched. And if I will just say, from being in the fitness industry, I'll kind of link it to this. If anyone has ever taken the time to actually have someone else stretch them. So you're like, oh, I want to be more flexible and this is going to feel so good. I'm going to have somebody else stretch me. And so all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, why are you taking my hamstring that far? What are you trying to do to my neck? Like, what is happening right now? And you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Or if anyone's ever taken a deep stretch class where you're supposed to stay in the stretch and take deep breaths, and that you're legitimately supposed to hold that stretch for 5 minutes.
5 minutes of your life, you're supposed to hold that stretch. And at some point, you're thinking to yourself, I don't think I can do this any longer. Like, this is so hard. Like, that I'm going to rip something. Like, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And you just start taking deep breaths. So if you think about that stretching and just that act of obedience towards that stretching, your flexibility changes in your body. And when your flexibility changes in your body, then your mobility changes in your body, and your brain starts to make it possible for you to move better and for you to be conditioned to move with better posture and better alignment. But then on top of that, you become stronger, and your strength is able to make it possible for you to withstand, I don't know, stepping off that curb in the morning or bending over and picking something up, or
I'm working on those myself.
Maybe even something more challenging that comes along. So let me just take all of that fitness analogy and just throw it right back at you. Is God really testing you? Are you really being tested, or are you being stretched? And is that stretching in order to improve your flexibility and dynamically make you a more physically, emotionally, and spiritually flexible person? And your obedience to allow God to stretch you, to not just give up as soon as it gets hard and as soon as it gets complicated, is going to allow for more mobility, which means your brain is going to link up to the fact that, oh, this is how I'm living. God's stretching me now. This is my new way of living, my new way of eating, my new way of thinking, my new way of walking, my new way of talking, my new way of listening to things. And then what does all that do? All that obedience, all of those changes, all of those different things that you've restructured, what does that do? It produces strength to endure the fight, the fire, everything that comes to a new day when you're walking it out as a Christian, when you're walking out the call and purpose that God has for your life. Now you have the strength to endure the hardship like a soldier, which is exactly what the Bible tells us to do.
I think for me, and this is probably just because I don't stretch, I'm just kidding, but I obviously love strength training. And so I think of God as like your spotter. Okay. And so if you come to me and you tell me you want a 500-pound bench press, and right now you can bench 50 pounds, you got to understand that we're not going to keep benching 50 pounds. We're going to bench 75. We're going to bench 100. We're going to bench 150. And it's going to be a road to 500. And it actually never gets easier. You know, it's not like, okay, I can bench 100 now, so it feels easy to go to 125. It doesn't. It continues to be hard, and it continues to be hard, and it continues to be hard. But one day you bench 500 pounds. Well, my job as your spotter, as your coach, is not to deadlift 500 pounds off of your chest. My job is to assist you in your lift off. My job is to assist you in watching you and making sure you're safe. And when you get to that point where you can't do it alone, I come in and I help. But you're doing the work because you want the 500-pound goal. And I just think that God has us like that. And so many times I think people try to do things on their own, and they, it's like they think, okay, well, I just can't do this because I can't do it alone. And they don't pay attention to the fact that they've got a spot. And you really have to work your way toward things. Like you can't expect to just be able to do something without actually strengthening yourself to be able to do it. So when you've got this thing that you're staring at in the mirror and it looks way too big, how do you train for it? How do you take little chunks out of it? You know, it's like I know people that want to be millionaires, right? Like, man, I just really want to be a millionaire. And it's like, okay, but you haven't even figured out how to be a thousandaire. Like, are you working? That's a real word. I made it up. Listen, all words are made up. Okay. So if I want to make up my own words, like at some point, someone made up the word like booger. Okay. So like if I want to make up thousandaire, I make it up. You guys can use it. You're welcome. Okay. So it's like, if you haven't even figured out how to operate there, how do you think you're going to figure out to operate as a millionaire? Like, what work ethic do you have? What are you putting in to make that work? What are you doing to ensure success at that level? It's why you see so many people win the lottery, $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, and they're bankrupt in a very short period of time because they don't know how to handle it. So you have to understand that the fire is what actually forges you. So when you feel like you're in the fire, you feel like you're in the mud, you feel like you're in the problems, the dirts and the troubles, just recognize that's actually where strength is made. So whatever it is you're praying for, whatever it is you're looking for, it's probably on the back end of that test or that stretching.
I think it's important for everyone to have goals. I've never been a goal-chasing trainer. That's just not me. I want longevity. I want to give someone a lifestyle concept. I want discipline habits. I want you to create a pattern of discipline. It's important to have goals. And like John was talking about, you have this pattern of goals and you're asking God to help you with them. But I think it's more important to make sure you're living in alignment with God and the purpose and the call that he has for your life, because all of your goals might actually be the very reason why you're in a constant state of chaos, because you've created this need for something that God really never intended for you to be part of or for you to even be chasing after. So it goes back to connection. It goes back to focus. It goes back to how connected are you with the Lord and what his call and purpose is for your life. For more information on what we do at Integrity Training Systems with a 6-month nutrition program with myself or a free personal fitness assessment with any of our trainers, take a look at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from my personal bakery, take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed beef, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com.
Welcome back, everybody. John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. We're so happy to have you. We just got done talking about what it means to be a warrior and overcoming. And I just think that we're sticking to this topic so much here lately because we're just running into so many people that feel defeated. And what's interesting is, life has always been hard. You look back in time and I think about how like every generation talks about their life being harder than the one before them. They're like, oh yeah, well, we have this problem now. We have this problem. And man, the world's gotten worse. And, Pastor Jeff Perry, he always says that there's nothing new under the sun. And so it's like everybody, people have been overcoming problems and mountains and issues since the beginning of time. So when you're dealing with something, what you want to think about is, who else has overcome this, especially in today's day and age, like with the internet, like find an actual positive use for the internet rather than just scrolling and just say like, I am dealing with this issue. Go in Google, go in ChatGPT and just say like, how do I overcome this? Like somebody out there has probably worked on something or overcome or is overcoming something similar to you. And so go out and actually seek that overcoming. They say faith without works isn't dead. That's what the Bible says. So you can have the faith, you can make the prayer, but God might actually be showing you what you need to do. I was talking about this with one of my clients. My client, we're working on strengthening him and rehabbing him, and he was talking about how he had been praying for healing. Well, he was provided the opportunity through someone he knew to come and meet me. Well, working with me has actually created and promoted this healing in his body. But he had to actually take the step of calling us and then coming in and seeing us. But that's his healing. So he was praying for this healing. And I think sometimes we expect the burning bush miracle. And I'm not saying God doesn't still do that because he absolutely does. But sometimes he's presenting you with something and you're just not taking him up on it. And one thing that I've heard this before is, there was a guy and his house is flooding. This didn't actually happen, by the way. This is just a story. So his area was flooding. And so he gets up on his top floor of his deck and this guy comes driving by in a big truck. And he's like, hey man, like we're getting out of here. Do you want to go with us? He's like, no, I've been praying about it. God's going to bring me out of here. So then he gets up on his roof and a boat comes by and this boat comes by and he's like, hey man, like, the water's getting really high. Like you want to hop in the boat? We got one spot left. We'll get you out of here. And he's like, no, I prayed to God that he's going to get me out of here. God's going to get me out of here. So a helicopter flies by. He's on his chimney now. And the helicopter comes by and he's like, hey, this whole area is water. What are you still doing here? Climb up the ladder. We'll get you out of here. No, God's going to get me out of here. So the water rises and the man drowns. And so he's in heaven and he says, God, why didn't you get me off the house? I've been praying. He's like, what do you mean I didn't get you off the house? I sent you a truck, I sent you a boat, and I sent you a helicopter. So the question becomes like, are you missing what you're praying for? The assistance might be right in front of you and you're praying for it. The strength and the opportunity to grow through the stretching is there and you're just not using it.
And that's a hard thing. I mean, I think that is a hard thing to try to take on is am I hearing from God? You know, like, how do we know for sure? Did God send the truck? I mean, how do you sit on your deck and know, is the truck from God?
Right.
I mean, what's the telling tale? Well, I know, I'm just going to give my personal experience, and I think you should give your personal experience. Is how do you know that? I guess I have peace in my heart. And I think that, life can present anxieties around every corner. But the reality of it is that when I feel certain, as certain as you can feel that something is from God, I suddenly, in the midst of just complete chaos, will have calm and peace in my heart. And I always relate it, and I go back and I send this to people all the time, and then I watch it all the time, of that war scene in the very first Wonder Woman where the guys are like falling back and they're like, we're getting destroyed. And she's like, I'm not going to continue to just watch this happen. And she just stands up in the middle of the battlefield. And they're like, she's taking all the fire because she puts her shield up and she just starts taking all the fire. And so in the middle of this incredible, insanely difficult time, she just finds a formula to have enough peace to walk into the battlefield and take all the fire because she's confident in knowing that she's coming out on the other end of that. And so I think when you really are trying to feel, am I in alignment with God on these goals, on these decisions, on these choices that I'm making, you gotta think, like, if I'm in a chronic state of panic, an absolute chronic state of panic, would God put that on me? Is that truly his will? Or am I setting myself up with these goals and these aspirations and these choices and these things that I want to do? And are they really in the will of God? Are they with people I should be with? Are they doing the things I should do? Do I keep getting injured from it? Do I keep losing money from it? Do I keep losing friends from it? Do I keep having complications in my relationship from it? Is it from God? I mean, yes, you're going to have difficulties. I mean, by all means, John and I have gone through plenty of difficulties in business, plenty of difficulties in our health. We've never felt like God wasn't with us every single step of the way. But we have also hired people we shouldn't have hired. We have not fired people as fast as we should have fired them. We have bought something that we shouldn't have bought. We have, you know what I mean? We've said things that we shouldn't have said. We've done things that we shouldn't have done. We're human. We're going to error. But as you go through that process and as you do error and make those decisions and sometimes bad decisions, you learn from every single one of them and you keep continuing to regain wisdom. And my long-winded approach to this is just simply to tell you, stay connected to God. Stay in the Word of God. Stay listening to worship music instead of rap music. And I'm no disrespect, listening to rap worship music. Stay listening to something that keeps you connected with the Lord. Don't watch stuff that gets your mind off of Jesus and his call and his purpose for you. Don't hang around with people that drag you down. Don't hang around with people that cause conflict. Don't eat things that make you poisonous and sick. Don't drink things that make you eat things that you shouldn't. Don't drink things that make you poisonous and sick. There's so many things that are taking you away from the will of God, taking you away from a clearer picture of if you're hearing from God. And wouldn't that be exactly what the enemy would want, is for you to not hear from God? Isn't that his true desire, is for you to be so fogged up and so bogged down that you truly don't hear from him, so you cannot tell, is it what he wants for me or not? For more information on what we do at Integrity Training Systems with a 6-month nutrition program with myself or a free personal fitness assessment, take a look at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from my personal bakery, take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed beef, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com. Also, another thing to know about Fed From the Farm is that they have chicken that has not been fed soy and corn. This is a new situation. They can 100% confirm that they have not fed those chickens soy and corn. And if you're an autoimmune client, that makes a very big difference for you. That's fedfromthefarm.com. A farmer and his family from Sedalia. It'll ship right to your door.
Welcome back, everybody. John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. If you're with us last segment, we actually were talking about, what does it take to be able to overcome? Like, what does it take to get through the things in life that you're required to get through? And we were talking about strengths, and, I think it's important to talk about, like, when you're trying to overcome fog, like, are you working against yourself? And so when I talk to people, it's like, if you have a postural deviation, if you've got an actual structural issue and you go to do an exercise, you might not be able to do that exercise because you might not have the capability to get through that postural deviation. So just hang with me for a second. If you've got forward shoulder posture and your shoulders are slumped forward and you go to do a bench press, you might not be able to access your pecs, but even if you can, you might be pushing through resistance in your shoulder to be able to do that. So let's just say you're pushing through 30 to 40 pounds of resistance in your shoulders before you even start to bench press. That could actually become a problem for the shoulder itself, resulting in injury. If you're trying to hear from God, or you're trying to discern the right way through a situation, and you're shoving a bunch of poisonous food and drink in your mouth, you might not hear from anything because you're so fogged up and cloudy that your spirit isn't even open to that. Or you might not be able to think through the next steps of what you need to do because you're just too busy not feeling well. And I remember, in my 20s, I was an alcoholic and I was also a pill popper. And I basically spent my life, if I wasn't working, in a state of like almost just kind of brought down, or I don't want to say depressed, but that's what it does. It depresses your body. Scenario where it was kind of hard to think about like what I was going to do. And I feel like so many people live their life like that. They talk about being on like the 9 to 5 grind. And then it's like TGIF, like, thank goodness it's Friday. I'm going into my Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday morning, they look like a zombie. And it's like, hey, how's it going? Like, it's another Monday. And it's like, no, you know what? You were given another Monday. And if what you're doing with your life doesn't present some kind of joy Monday through Friday, you might want to evaluate why. Like, what are you dealing with and what are you not overcoming? And I know people are like, well, that's easy for you to say, John, if you enjoy what you do, but I'm stuck in my job. Well, you know what? I was in law enforcement. I had a heart attack. I ended up getting divorced, filing bankruptcy, and lived in my truck for a week before going into the fitness industry and ultimately getting to a place where I owned my own gym. So I'm probably not the person to tell you're stuck. You can make a decision to change where you are in life, but it's going to take actually breaking that cycle in your mind. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're drinking a bunch of chemical junk or eating a bunch of junk. Like, you have to train the way you go to war. And so if you're spending Saturday and Sunday getting drunk and partying and slamming a bunch of pizza and candy, when Monday hits, it's going to be a rough Monday. And then you fight through your rough Monday through Friday to just do it again. So how do you expect to get ahead or get in a different place? I mean, they say that the definition of insanity is to do the same thing repetitively and expect a different result, right? So maybe try something different. And I always tell people, like, from a spiritual perspective, I had a counselor tell me one time, he said, you have built your physical warrior so well that there's not anything you're afraid of taking on physically, but you've allowed your spiritual warrior to be a baby. He's like, so physically, you'll destroy anything that comes through the door, but spiritually, you're wearing diapers. And so it kind of hit me where I was like, wow, okay, well, that would explain why when something happens, I get pissed off because I can't actually use my fists to fight it. I loop. My brain sits on all of the things I want to say and I want to do. Like, oh, man, that guy that cut me off, if I stopped and talked to him, I would say blah, 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 blah. And I'd show him, and, man, I'm going to kick him in his teeth and I'm so ticked off. I'm going to honk at him and get behind him. What do you think you're accomplishing other than giving yourself a high heart rate and probably an adrenaline dump in 10 minutes? That guy doesn't care. He's not going to get anything out of that. You're not going to say all of the things you're telling yourself you're going to say. You're not going to stop and fight him. And if you do, then I guess you just end up in jail and that's what you get out of it. But all of that energy is wasted, and it's not good to have go through your system. So the question is why? Like, why are you getting that mad? What's so off in you to cause that? And any of you that know me, like, I have always been a nice person, but I was a rage monster. And the reason I raged is because I was chemically imbalanced. I was eating things that kept my neurochemistry so messed up that I would walk around and like just the smallest hairline thing would tick me off. And it was such a waste of time, such a waste of energy. And it's really hard to think about the next phases of your life or where you want to go through if you're already resisting yourself. It's like life has enough for you to push through. That's what we're talking about overcoming, right? So if you have to push through your own anger and irritation and annoyance to get to the next phase, do you really think you're going to be able to tackle what's in front of you? The Bible offers you a peace that surpasses understanding, but you have to open your spirit to be able to receive that. So if you find yourself getting mad all the time, you might want to take a look at what you're doing. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Grant Cardone. I don't know. But there was a guy that said that if you have time, no, it was a guy Grant was interviewing. I don't know his name. If you have time to get angry in traffic, you're not doing enough with your life. If you have time to get mad that a waiter messes up your order at a restaurant, it doesn't mean you don't send it back, but it does mean that you're not doing enough with your life if you're going to get angry at things like that. So check yourself. Dean, okay, so it's like check yourself. Are you getting to actually even enjoy your life, or are you putting yourself in a position where you're not getting to enjoy your life, and why? Like, are you chemically incapable? Because we're feeding ourselves this garbage. And Myron Golden says online, he says that most Americans will dig their grave with a knife and a fork. So are you eating this kind of stuff that's making you actually incapable of even thinking about the next step?
Last night, I called Sophie. She was at her mom's house. So I called her and I just said, let's revisit the notes from church today. So I just wanted to just bolster her and build her for the week. And so I said, just give me the summary of what you got out of church. And this was just last night. And so I just want to mention this beginning part that she said, because I was sort of set back from it. I was driving and I was just like, oh, that was really good. I wish I could write it down, but I'm driving. So the pastor said to all of us, he said, build your altar. Build your altars, people. Start building your altars. So what I said to Sophie is, what does that mean to you, Sophie? And she said, it means sacrifice. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? What do you need to do? She said, so I need to sacrifice some things, and I need to build an altar that will alter my decisions. And I was like, okay, that is impressive. I was like, what kind of decisions? She said, well, first of all, I have to sacrifice pleasing my flesh and start to live according to my faith. And I know my faith is telling me to eat clean, drink clean, and only be, along the pattern of healthy living. Because once I go to my flesh, I know I'm not going to feel strong enough to do all that God's called me to do. So my first altar that what I'm sacrificing at my first altar is bad decisions, bad food, and the inability to not see straight and to truly focus on what God's called me to do because of those bad foods. And then I said, okay, so what else? And she said, he also said that we need to fight the giants. And I said, all right, what do you think he means by that? And she said, this is a 13-year-old. She said, we're going to fight the giants of generational oppression, because just because my grandfather and his father and my great-grandfather and my cousins and my aunts and my uncles have had food issues, and that they're addicted to food and they're addicted to sugar and they have diabetes and they have heart disease, just because that curse was on all of those generations doesn't mean it has to move forward. So I'm going to fight the giant. This is what my 13-year-old said. I'm going to fight the giant of this generational curse that has been put on my family of disease and oppression, and it stops with me.
There you go. You know,
I was like, ow, I know. I was like in the car trying. I think I passed up the subdivision. I'm like, whoa, it was just really good. And she just, she's 13. She got that from the message. She wasn't in a youth group.
Yeah.
She was in church.
Yeah, I think that the Bible is pretty clear, in my opinion, about building an altar before you dig a well. And so many people dig a well, and what that means is wells are sustenance. Like back in ye olde times, you dug a well to find water. You can't live somewhere that you can't produce your own water for hydration, drinking, planting. I mean, you need water. Water is life, right? That's why the Bible talks about Jesus and God being the everlasting flowing waters. So spiritually, what that means is you have to build an altar to create sacrifice before you dig a well with expectation of God's blessing.
Yes.
And so if you're digging your well and you're like, okay, God, like, where's the water? Like, come on, let me get this. Like, and you're praying and you're like praying for this stuff and you're not getting it. Have you actually created an altar, such as our daughter just said, where you're sacrificing something to actually open up the opportunity to dig the well to receive the blessing that is guaranteed to you? And so sometimes you only stay at an altar and a well for a certain period of time. It might be shorter than you expect to be there. So you just have to be careful, because if you dig a well and you start expectation, you might sit there without the altar and never actually receive anything, because you've built a well of expectations somewhere that you're not even meant to be.
That's the thing. There was this comment that I wrote down. It said, without purpose, you get entwined in many areas you don't need to be. So without purpose, but where, a lot of people wake up with purpose, right? A lot of people wake up with this plan in their head that this is what they need to be doing. But is it God's purpose for your life? Is it a godly purpose?
So godly purpose creates fulfillment, and a lack of fulfillment is why people commit suicide.
That's right.
Now, listen, there's neurological problems, there's chemical predispositions, there's issues that ultimately lead to suicide. But from what I did in law enforcement and the studies that I have gone through, most times it's a lack of fulfillment. And that fulfillment that they need in their heart is Jesus. But what happens is people are like, why would that person commit suicide? They're a multi-mega millionaire. They're a billionaire. Like, they have everything. No, they don't, because they've lost their sense of purpose, or they've potentially not even found it. And without purpose, without fulfillment, life doesn't feel like it's worth living. And that's why you find people that live under bridges that are happy as can be, and you find billionaires committing suicide. So I always challenge people, like, you need to check where you're at in life. Like, are you feeling purpose? Like, I don't care if your job is to be a missionary or a trash man, you can find purpose in what you do, and you should.
And they might be fogged up and bogged down by different drinks and foods that just make them feel like they no longer can find their purpose. For more information on what we do at Integrity Training Systems, take a look at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from My Personal Bakery, take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed beef, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com.
Welcome back, everybody. John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. So happy to have you. We've been talking a lot about purpose and just kind of getting to the next step of your life as you overcome the fight with the giants that may be presenting themselves in front of you. And we were talking in the last segment about some things that Sophie said about building an altar, and I mentioned that you have to build altars before you dig wells. And I just think that people get into this state of expectation and this borderline, I deserve this mentality, and they lose sight of what is required to actually step out of the phase that they're in to go to the next level, and they kind of get stuck. And the way that I always say it is people become comfortable in their discomfort. So they're not actually comfortable. They don't really want to be there. They hate their job. They're unhappy when they go home. They've created this situation where they're so fogged up, so bogged down that they just feel stuck. And like Deb said, that could be chemistry. That could be that you're eating and drinking the wrong things. And so you don't even really have a fighting chance because you would have to work through all of that before you could even actually tackle the giant that's in front of you. But you know, if you're in a position where that's what you're dealing with, I question, it's like, ask yourself, like, how did I get here and how do I step out of this? Like, how do I put myself in a place where I can train to be ready for the next level? And if the training is hindered by consumption, which is so common, then how do you get out of that? And sometimes what people don't realize is it's not as simple as just being like, well, I just won't have sugar. Because there are people that say that. There's people that are like, well, I don't understand. Why don't you just quit eating that? But sugar addiction through actual chemical addiction is very real. As someone who is addicted to alcohol and painkillers and candy, the only thing my brain ever really wants to go back to is candy. I don't think about having a nice cold beer. I don't think about Percocet even though my back hurts. I think about going back for food. So that addiction is interesting because when I do eat something bad, because I'm human and I falter and I bring something in, a lot of times I lose the next day. I get kind of hazy or I might be down or kind of crabby or whatever it may be. And so if you're doing that every day, like ask yourself, like, why are you so unhappy? Like, is it really that your situation is so bad? And if you can sit down and you can write out a list and you don't see anything on there that you actually rationally believe would be enough to live in a perpetual state of anxiety or depression, I challenge you to ask yourself why you are. And perhaps it's that you're just creating an imbalance that you can't fight your way out of.
I have watched people, you need someone to stand in the gap for you, okay? Like if you're feeling that way, you're going to go to the doctor and you're going to get put on a medication based off of what you tell. And there are some people that genuinely need to be put on that medication. There are some people that do not need to be put on the medication. There are some people that need someone to stand in the gap for them. Someone that is well educated, someone that is well able to speak up and say, you are having a reaction to the drink that you drink every morning. It starts you and it puts you in fight or flight, and it gets you stuck in flight or flight. Or you're having a reaction to the breakfast that you have every day. You're having a reaction to the lack of breakfast that you have every day. You're having a reaction to the candy, to the food dyes, to the sugar. You're having a reaction to the gluten. Do you know on our daughter's gut tumor test, there was a skull and crossbones, and it said she's not only sensitive to gluten, she's so sensitive to gluten that it could potentially cause a mental disability, okay, meaning mental problems, but also suicidal tendencies. Yep. She was so significantly sensitive to gluten that it warned us that our child could have suicidal tendencies. She was 9 years old when we had the test run. It was that intense of a warning. Now, when my child goes to school and I look at what they have in the lunchroom, all of it has gluten in it. All of it has sugar in it. All of it has syrups in it. Most of it has food dyes in it. No one is informed. No one is educated. No one knows what those kids should be doing. There are some parents that are fighting the good fight and sending their kids with lunch, but you need someone to stand in the gap for you. If your kid is being put on some type of attention deficit disorder medication, and there are only 7, we've got to look at what they're eating and drinking. If you're an adult and you're dealing with panic attacks, we have to look at what you're eating and drinking. If you're chronically depressed, if you don't want to go anywhere, don't want to be around anybody, if you were not like this your whole entire life, we have to look at what you're eating and drinking. We also might have to look at mycotoxins to determine if you're maybe dealing with a mold situation. We also might have to look at heavy metals to determine if you have an abundance of heavy metals in your body. We also might have to look at a viral panel and determine, are you dealing with a chronic fatigue virus like mono, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, herpes simplex virus, a Lyme disease? Do you have something that's just pulling your immune system down so much that you're really struggling to focus? But do you know what's really interesting about everything I just said? The heavy metals, the viral component, the mycotoxins. You know what makes every single one of those things 10 times worse? What you eat and drink. So if you're dealing with mycotoxins, what you eat and drink can make it worse. If you have viruses and chronic fatigue disease, what you eat or drink can make it worse. If you have excessive heavy metals, what you eat or drink could be full of those heavy metals. It could be full of lead. It could be full of arsenic. You could be compounding what you already have, the problem that you already have. You need someone to stand in the gap for you, someone that understands what is going on, someone that can say, don't just jump on a medication. Try to change your food. Try to change your drink first. Maybe try the supplement first. Maybe try acupuncture. Maybe try stretching. Maybe try breath work. Maybe try to go to a cryo chamber. Try to do a sauna. Try to go to Palm Health and do all of their vitality services. There's so many different angles. Try to go to a functional doctor instead of a traditional doctor. Try to have your hormones looked at. There are so many things that we may need to have checked, looked at, but we need someone else. You need to keep seeking that next person that could potentially stand in the gap for you and try to help you.
Yeah, I think too many people don't actually find their baseline to be treated from. I mean, if you're treated from a state of already being kind of waves crashing against the shore, then yeah, maybe it calms the waves, but it calms the waves for where you are right there. You know, like for me, when I was in law enforcement, I was drinking a case of beer every day, and I was eating McDonald's like it was going out of style and drinking Mountain Dew like fish drink water. And had I been treated there, because I did deal with depression, anxiety, like had I been treated there and I got a medication, that medication could have, and potentially and probably would have, assisted me in that position. But the second I quit drinking soda, or I drink a little bit more, or I drink a little bit less, or I have more of my McDonald's, or I have more or less beer, now I have actually altered my chemistry with those medicines on board. So the baseline is going to be getting yourself healthy, getting yourself well, being on a nice, clean nutrition plan, exercising, training for longevity. Then is when you get medicated, if it's necessary, because there are people that it is. There are people that require some form of medication to be balanced and to be okay after they have that baseline. But when you're treated at the baseline, that medication becomes more trustworthy. Because when you're treated when the waves are crashing and they're throwing other things in to control the waves, the second that situation changes and you alter your baseline, it becomes more of a problem. You want the medication to be the only variable in your health. So if your exercise is in place, your recovery is as in place as possible, your food's as in place as possible, as much control as you can have, the medication variable actually becomes more trustworthy. Because if all of those other variables are firing off, then you don't really actually know what the problem is.
That's right. And you may not need that medication. But if you have all those other things going on, you might be medicating yourself for something that you don't need to be medicating yourself for, and therefore creating an even bigger problem. Let the food, let the exercise, let what you're drinking, let your flexibility, your breath work, all of these different health scenarios and all these different treatments, let all that balance you and build a foundation of health. And then what's left over, let the proper medical team then medicate you from that point. For more information on what we do at Integrity Training Systems with a 6-month nutrition program with myself or a free personal fitness assessment with any of our trainers, take a look at integritytrainingsystems.com or give us a call at 636-299-2208. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your door from my personal bakery to you, take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-fed beef, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com. Thank you for listening, and God bless.